Somehow, Auburn still has a lot to prove as they host Ole Miss Wednesday night.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Ben Taylor over at the Auburn Network. He hosts Auburn Opelika this morning on News Talk WANI. We'll give our predictions for who wins between Auburn and Ole Miss. You guys have already heard mine if you listen to every show. Thank you so much for those who do that. But Ben, just when you look at this, there's still so many questions that people are, I'm surprised some of these national talking heads haven't pulled a hamstring or something with the reaching that they're doing to like nitpick Auburn's resume and for them to say that they're not deserving of the number one spot. It's fascinating. It's truly, truly fascinating with all of this. But I still think they have stuff to prove against Ole Miss Wednesday night, 6:00 tip in Neville. But then on the other side of that, it's like, I think Auburn could beat them by 15 or 20, and they would still say, no, they still, there's still holes in what Auburn's doing.
Yeah, and they haven't done themselves any favors because it's been that complete game that they haven't put together from the outside, from the inside, defense, and where they win by 30. And I guess they expect a number one team to do that. I don't, because of the conference that Auburn is playing in. I mean, you look at the top 25 and how riddled it is with teams from the SEC. Well, that's who's on Auburn's schedule. So they're going to continue to nitpick because after this Ole Miss game, Kentucky, A&M, Alabama, you're talking about three, let's just call it top 10 teams. I think A&M got screwed as far as getting out of the top 20 or top 10 this past week. Number 6 loses to number 7, and all of a sudden you bounce to number 12. Please, They shouldn't have done that. Should have just swapped spots. So I guess my thing is they're going to continue to do it. So Auburn fans might as well get used to it, and Auburn players ought to get used to it. And
it's so strange to me that, I mean, you look at what Florida has done, which is kind of if the folks that were anti-Auburn, they want Florida to be number one. Some people say Duke, but Florida seems to be the most common one, which I do think has a better argument than Duke right now. It's like, okay, they whooped up on an LSU team that stinks.
Yeah.
They whooped up on an Oklahoma team that stinks. They whipped up on a South Carolina team that finally won their first SEC game. I do think South Carolina is better than the record.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it is what it is.
They clearly still stink. Sorry.
At this point. Yeah. And then, they beat up on a Mississippi State team, which, okay, Auburn beat up on them without Johni Broome.
Johni Broome.
So to me, it's like, okay, like I get where you're coming from if that's your argument. But I don't think the team that you're championing right now has done the things that you're asking a number one team to do either. If that's the case, which I still think is a stupid criteria. Yeah. Auburn has had one of the toughest schedules in all of college basketball, and their 2 losses are to Duke and to Florida. I mean, what are we doing here?
Is there still a national media bias towards Bruce Pearl?
As far as like the opposite, like the anti-bias?
The anti-bias, yeah, the ones that still just, you see the Twitter trolls that just don't like Pearl, that are against Pearl.
Don't you think, I almost think that we see this in football too. Anytime you see a new fixture at the top.
Yep.
I think we saw it to some extent with Indiana making the college football playoff in football. We're like, they're not supposed to be here. They're not supposed to be here. I think the inner circle of, the national voices of college basketball, Auburn's not supposed to be at the top from their point of view. I think there's a little bit of rocking the boat here, and that's what Auburn is doing.
I completely agree. And I will say some people that are tied close to it, like even Billis is a Duke guy. And Billis has talked about how Auburn's a clear number one. He has made that statement. But it's like his friends that work with him are not in that same boat. Dane Bradshaw the other night watching the game, he said the same thing. He said Auburn's clearly the number one, but he's not getting some of his cohorts. So are we hearing a lot of the loud minority, which are some of those people that are reaching, that are trying to push Auburn down a little bit? Or are we hearing just a little bit of it, and because we're not seeing that 15 to 20 point win per game, which you sometimes see out of number one teams. Maybe we're taking it a little too personal. I do think that there's an issue there. I don't think that they, you see some of the guys. I mean, even some of the guys that have been on College Game Day have been pro Duke or pro Florida instead of pro Auburn until they come and they do an Auburn game, and then they're like, yeah, but we still love you. Like, you still deserve to be here. It's like, you're saying that because you're sitting here in the stadium. You're sitting in Neville Arena. I need to hear that same energy on a Wednesday morning when you do your show, not on a Saturday when you're in front of a bunch of Auburn people that are going to pepper you with booze.
Yeah, after Auburn beat Georgia on Saturday, you flip over to the Auburn or the Alabama and Kentucky game, and in the final minutes or so, they're talking about, like, Alabama's up there. They're making the case. Right now, I think it's Florida. I know Auburn's number one, but I think it should be Florida. And it's like, what are y'all doing?
I know.
Like, it almost seems organized. Like, this organized message of, like, anytime you get a chance, like, put another team other than Auburn at number one. And some of it, I think, is the rocking the boat. Like, there's a new brand up there that stayed up there for a long time. Mm-hmm. And also, like, it's a little unusual for a team to stay number one for as long as Auburn has. And I guess some of that is just the timing of losses. Like, they lost to Florida the same week. Clemson beat Duke. Mm-hmm. And so, like, is that part of it? Is it boring, the fact that it's been the same team at number one for such a large amount of time? That could play into it. But all in all, like, Auburn folks, I just don't think Auburn folks despise ESPN as much as they should, because they clearly don't appreciate the brand that Auburn has, and they're doing everything they can. We've seen it with football, and now we're seeing it with basketball. They do everything that they can to not give Auburn its flowers when the credit is due.
It's not a national name. It's not yes, it is to us because we're all blinded by orange and blue glasses, but it's not a Duke, North Carolina. I mean, they're giving North Carolina love, and they're terrible this year. They're absolutely awful, and they carried them prime time earlier this week against Florida State. It's not a Kansas. It's not even a Michigan. It's not even and so Alabama still, I don't know why they keep thinking that that's a household name, but they seem to, I think that's carried over from football.
Made the Final Four last year. I mean, I think that's fair. They were number one for a big chunk of the season last year.
So they're living off residual, I guess. That's a little bit of what they're doing. Florida is a more national name from the Billy Donovan years than, say, Auburn is. But this is the same way with the player of the year stuff with Duke's Cooper Flagg and Auburn's Johni Broome. If Cooper Flagg wins it, that's a Duke and Coach Krzyzewski award. That's not a Cooper Flagg award. And I think that you're seeing that same thing from a team standpoint, that they're looking at Florida and they're not looking at the talent that is with Florida and with Auburn. They're looking at Duke and not the talent between Auburn and Duke. They're just looking at the name and going, those guys should be there, not the new guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's a new guy. I don't know why it's a new guy either, Zach, because it's been 10 plus years now. Like, Bruce has been in office and been successful over this span. Yes, there have been some down years, but still he's been successful.
Yeah. Some of the arguments that have popped up against Johni Broome in favor of Cooper Flagg are interesting. It's like, okay, whenever you present stats and strength of opponent and all that, the quick thing is, well, Johni Broome's a projected, like, round 2 draft pick. It's like, when has that ever mattered? When has that ever mattered for the Heisman? When has that ever mattered for player of the year in any sport? It's not who's projected to be the number 1 pick. If that was the case, well, let's just hold the award until the night of the NBA draft or the night of the NFL draft, and then just give the first pick the player of the year award. Like, that is a dumb argument. It's the best college basketball player, and that's not always the best player at the next level. That's that way across all sports.
Yes,
all sports. So I have a hard time. I have a hard time fully grasping that train of logic. Who wins between Auburn and Ole Miss? Let's attack that next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Ben, can you imagine playing fantasy sports anywhere other than with our friends at Prize Picks?
Cannot.
Nope. Right now, you can win $50. You just got to play a $5 lineup. You don't even have to win. Okay. Just use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. You get $50 instantly when you play $5 This week, I mean, you could say, all right, I'm looking at Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Davis for more than 12 rebounds. Of course, they have the college games as well. But with Prize Picks, you just pick more or less than 2 player projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. It's easy as that. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. You get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. The Auburn Tigers took on Ole Miss a few weeks ago. Of course, that game was in Oxford. They won 92-82. I'm kind of expecting a similar type game with this. Johni Broome was still kind of figuring out how to play with, his ankle not being 100%. I think we saw in the final few minutes of the Georgia game that, okay, they can run the offense through Johni Broome. Again, exploded for 31 points. I'm interested to see how quickly they go to Johni Broome early in the post, not him shooting threes, but him around the basket, and then let that open up the three-point shooting. It seems like over the last few months, they've gone three-point shooting inward, and I kind of think they're going to go inward and then move out to the perimeter game. What do you think?
And by the way, I don't have a problem with what they've done the last couple of weeks. There have been a couple of times Miles has been wide open and not hitting that shot. I don't know what it's taken to I saw this stat this week. I don't know why Auburn is shooting like over 10% better on the road than they are at home behind the three-point line. So something either being amped up, some sort of juice is flowing, it's not falling. So yes, I'm with you. Go inside, work your way inside out. I do think that Johni Broome's a different player this time around. Also, you said a similar game. I don't think Ole Miss gives Auburn the fight that they did at Ole Miss. Ole Miss was really jacked up with people camping out and passing out flyers of what to do if you won the ball game. I mean, everybody stayed in attendance to the final buzzer. I caught flack for tweeting out or quote tweeting AL.com because they said Auburn escapes with a victory when they never even trailed in that ball game. But apparently they escaped with a 10-point victory.
I forgot about that. You did give them a lot of heck for that. Yeah.
And so I don't think, and if it's 10 points on the road and that sort of atmosphere, I think that it's 15 to 20 points easily. Hit the over. Auburn covers against Ole Miss in the confines of Neville Arena. And especially if you do your game plan of going inside out with combination, and I really like the combo of Broome and Chaney Johnson, by the way. Combination of the big guys taking it in and then working its way out, open up those guys. Yeah, I think it could be a thing where Ole Miss also does not get a chance. Unless they hit the first bucket of the game, they don't get an opportunity to lead this time around either.
Yeah, I also wonder what's the psyche and the mentality of this Ole Miss team. I mean, they were kind of humming along. Big win at Kentucky. They get wins at LSU, at South Carolina, drop one at Mississippi State, drop one at Vandy, and now they've got to go play Auburn in Neville. Like that's where are they mentally? And they're in the tournament, right? It's like, okay, well, let's just see what we get. Let's just see what kind of draw we get. Like, is that where they are mentally? Like, it's impossible for us to know unless we're in that locker room, but it's a lot of adversity mentally, especially when your final 4 games are at Auburn, got Oklahoma at home, you play Tennessee, and you go to Florida. Like, that's just a brutal stretch. And you're probably going to go into that stretch with a 3-game losing streak. So it's where are you if you're Ole Miss?
I mean, right now you're wanting to stop the bleeding if you got that losing streak, and you go into that, you're probably coming out at max 1-3 if you're looking at it on paper.
Yeah.
And that's me giving them the Oklahoma win. I don't even know if that's the case after what Oklahoma did this past weekend. So
that's a tough stretch to finish it when you couple in the two. They're 0-2 in their last 2 as well.
And
I know 5 skid to finish the season.
Man, that's brutal.
Not good. It's not good.
That's brutal. And in order to, and the thing is we know from last year, the seeding's not going to be helped at the tournament. You win 2 games in the SEC tournament, so you're not going to move up seeding wise.
Right.
So they need to have some upsets. But you mentioned not being in that locker room. Clearly they read headlines over there. They know what the takes around Oxford and all the way up into Memphis say, all those Ole Miss grads that moved to the big city of Memphis to work. They see those takes that go, hey, let's just play for seeding. Maybe the players are kind of buying into that. Instead of buying into what the coach is selling, they're buying into what the media says about, man, brutal stretch. let's just, now that we know we're probably in the tournament, let's stay healthy and get some decent seeding.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they respond. I think we'll know early. What version of Ole Miss we're going to see on Wednesday night. I think Auburn,
if Auburn comes out like they've done some other games, they come out hot and they go on one of those 15-0 runs or 20-5 runs to start the game, I think the headlines start going through their head and they mail it in for the rest of the game to play for seeding.
Maybe so.
I just don't, from the last couple of games I've seen Ole Miss play, the body language is just not, it's not there of what it was when Auburn visited Ole Miss a couple of weeks ago, in my opinion. And maybe the crowd helped with that. I don't know. But I think Auburn has an opportunity to kind of put them away early and then just kind of stay on cruise control in the second half and foul free. Please stop fouling.
Yeah. I don't mind the fouling as much as most people do. I mean, Auburn's deeper.
Yeah.
They play physical. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I've said it all week. I think Auburn wins like 80-70 is kind of where I'm thinking. Well, give me a score.
I'd go by, I'd say something like 15 or 20. So I'd say something like, I think they go 90 plus. So I'll go 93-75.
That'd be great. I hope you're right. You're right. Be much more fun to watch. No question about it. Ben Taylor, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
AUnetwork.com. You can download the Radio Alabama app and just click on News Talk WANI. We do sports Monday through Friday just after 7, including Locked On Wednesdays with our own Zac Blackerby, as well as you'll see some other guys like Charlie Five and Daryl Dapprich throughout there, as well as the voice of Auburn High, Jacob Goins.
Wow, host of Locked On Hoosiers.
There you go. So busy day, Monday through Friday. AUnetwork.com is where you can find me.
Yeah, please like the video. Please subscribe. And if you're listening on audio, please subscribe there and leave us a 5-star review. Helps the show out a ton. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.